This is John for Global Women's Sports Radio. Today I have the pleasure of being on the beat with Coach Krystle Evans of Academy of Art University. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I should have said women's basketball coach, just to clarify. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your path to? I know you played high school ball. I know you had an injury. You had a scholarship to UCLA, and then you had an injury which derailed your career. How did you get into coaching?
You know, um, I get that question often. I knew I always wanted to coach. I was blessed with a really good college coach. Kathy Olivier was great to me as a mentor as I was transitioning from Crenshaw High School to UCLA. After tearing my ACL multiple times and medically retiring, it was Kathy who talked to me about having a mind for the game and having to make sure that I stay involved. My father coached travel ball, and seeing him stay up late at night and study film and study clinics in terms of developing players, it just was a passion of mine. And so listening to Kathy and thinking about my roots, I actually just went for it. Kathy told me about an opening at a high school, U Park Prep. Denise Woods, who played at USC, was the head coach there, and she was the athletic director. I was rehabbing my knee and trying to just think of ways to stay around the game. And the rest is history. Denise took me under her wing. We won 4 championships at View Park Prep. When I graduated from UCLA, Denise was named head coach at Southwest Community College, and she took me with her as her associate head coach. We were there for 4 years before Bonnie Henriksen hired me as her director of operations at UC Santa Barbara, and I've been at NCAA institutions ever since.
Now, when you were at UCLA, you did something really important beyond involving basketball, but beyond just playing on the court. You led some rallies that led to a change in the system. I admit I'm not all that familiar with exactly. I've read about it. I haven't gotten exactly what it all entails. Could you explain that a little bit?
I've done a few interviews, and you're the first person to ask me about that. At
Okay.
UCLA, I was a political
Is that
science
good or
major.
bad?
And it's something I'm actually quite proud of because it shaped who I am holistically as a coach and as an educator. You know, um, I'm a Crenshaw High School product. I'm a proud product of Crenshaw High School. In 2006, we lost our accreditation. I was the student liaison to help us regain our accreditation. And so that was my first taste of protesting and standing up for my rights as a student, let alone a student athlete. And so we go there, we regain our accreditation, and I graduate, and I'm going to UCLA. Well, that same year, I'm one of 96 African Americans admitted into UCLA. And yeah, we wear that with a badge of honor. But when you walking down Broom Walk and students are like, well, you're one of 96, but you're only here because you're an athlete. And so now you have this double consciousness where you're trying to prove not only are you athletic, but you're also educated and can stay there with or without athletics. Like you belong there as well. You still had to have a certain GPA and a certain test score. And so I just threw myself into the African Student Union's work where we led protests, not just for the rights of current students at UCLA, but for students after. We challenged the chancellor and the vice provost to create programs where students at high schools, local high schools, who are students of color, can learn the admissions process and have an equal opportunity to be admitted into UCLA. And so my 4 years there, I volunteered for a program called the Vice Provost Pre-Initiative. And my first year out of high school, um, I had the honor of helping 19 African Americans get admitted into UCLA, 12 of whom came from Crenshaw High School. And so that was something that was really special to me, helping from a place of protest and a place of educating young people on not just their rights, but having information about the admissions process, and then speaking to the chancellor and vice provost about what needs to change in our admission process to make it more equitable for students of color.
Do you ever look back and go, how did I? I mean, to me, it's amazing, as a young woman as yourself, and actually kind of being in the minority, no pun intended, to have the courage to do all that. Did you look back at that and go like how did I even do that? That's amazing to me.
I think at times I may take that part of it for granted. My grandmother Reverend Johnson, she was one of the few African American female pastors in the United Methodist Church while I was growing up in Los Angeles. And so my whole makeup as a young person is kind of abnormal in that sense. You know, my grandmother, I saw her lead rallies for postal workers and janitors and people who had less than with um, you name it, from Karen Bass to Maxine Waters, where these are people I saw at my grandmother's dinner table on a regular day. And now you see Maxine trending as Auntie Maxine. I'm like, I grew up around these people where it was, this is what we do. This is how we do it. You speak up for yourself. You hold your head up high. You hold your chin up. You enunciate. That was grown in me since I was in elementary school, you know? And so it was never like, wow, it took courage and I did all that. It was, this is what was expected of me. You know, my grandmother, my great grandparents, they laid out the blueprint for me and it was for me to follow. It would be a disservice to all they've done for me to not pay it forward.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, to me, it's amazing. Again, as a young person as yourself, to make that type, to seek that type of change and to get it done. It's just amazing to me.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, you're coaching women's basketball at a place that's not a basketball powerhouse. Did that affect, did you think about that when you were going to, apply for the position, when you went for the position?
You know, when you go for any position, you look at places you can succeed. You look like, is this a place where I can win? And historically speaking, Academy of Art University, from a women's basketball perspective, had some success. You know, we won one regular season championship. We won a conference championship in the past. And so it wasn't like, oh, I don't think I could do it because it's been done. So now it's just, okay, how do we adapt to the times where now there's more schools from the GSAC who are in the conference? It's a very competitive conference in the sense of it's a challenge, but it could be done, you know? And so I never looked at it as if, oh, this isn't necessarily a powerhouse, you know, anywhere across the country, there's no need for a culture change if it wasn't some struggles down the road, right? You know,
Sure.
and so it's like this is just a new obstacle. You know, I've always had the underdog mentality, and now it's just the time to implement what you know.
Does that affect your coaching style? Like, do you change coaching styles depending on, I know you've had a couple of coaching stops before this. Does that change your coaching style?
It doesn't change my coaching style at all. If anything, it changes more so the type of student athletes we're recruiting. You know, not every student athlete is built for a city life, or I should say, a urban city life in a sense. You know, this is a commuters type campus. I always compare it to NYU, where our president, Dr. Eliza Stephen, has done a great job with providing the students with transportation throughout the city. You know, our departments are spread out amongst downtown San Francisco. And so to have transportation with that, that's a unique visit for a student athlete where it's like, hey, I'm used to being able to walk to all my classes. And well, that walk is 10 to 15 minutes at our school, or having to take our shuttle to our practice. It's convenient for those of us who are here, who are used to it. But if that's not something you want to commit to, this isn't the school for you. And so the biggest difference in terms of coaching style is the type of student athlete you recruit. But that's at any school you go to. You recruit to the culture of the school, the culture of the staff, what it is you're trying to do. But I would say that's the biggest difference.
And what do you think are your biggest benefits when you try to recruit somebody? What do you pitch them on, aside from
The
your
truth.
coaching style?
The truth, you know, we take pride in, think old school Memphis Grizzlies, you know, grit and grind, you know, Zach Randolph, grit and grind. And so that is who we are. We preach grit and grind, and that is the benefit of being a coach at Academy of Art University and a student athlete here, because you're going to have a mentality where there's no such thing as failure. You're not built to fail. Failure's not in your vocabulary. There's always an opportunity, right? And then when we know what our day to day look like compared to the average student athlete or the average coach, we know there's no way we can ever get out work. We refuse to, you know. And the benefit of that is seeing how much pride our young people have by the end of the year from all they've accomplished, in spite of, despite of. That's the benefit. You know, you can't ask for more as a coach.
True, good. Hey, if I was a young woman, you'd have me on that. I'm not a young woman and I had no talent, but other than that, I'd be right on it. Now, I
Well,
know that,
I'll tell you this much. This is the other benefit. The school sells itself once you're here. If you do your research, our instructors take pride into teaching you to be prepared for the real world from a workforce standpoint. You have young people from our university working for Pixar and BT and Fox. When you coach in women's basketball, you know that a lot of our young women are not going to have the opportunity to play at the next level. They're not playing professionally, and most of them don't even have a desire to do so. That percentage is very small. So when we're talking about what's your 40-year plan, and I'm not just pitching a dream, I'm telling you facts. Pixar is in your classroom. One of the directors for illustration worked with Moana and Pocahontas. These are people who are teaching to hire, not just teaching out of a textbook. And that is the difference here, where young women are like, I do want to think about what's next for me 4 years from now. I'm thinking about my career, where I can see myself long term.
no, I saw your schedule includes games in Hawaii, and it always amazes me, like, how challenging is that to keep the team's focus on the game when you're in Hawaii
For a week.
for a week?
It is a challenge. You try to balance keeping them active, focused, but still living up to the Division II experience. As a Division II institution, we take pride in work-life balance. That is a emphasis for Division II in general. And so how do we incorporate Hawaiian culture in a sense, like have some type of field trip aspect to things while still taking care of business? That is always a challenge. I can't tell you the recipe of success. We go 2-1 in Hawaii, but I can't, thank God. If we could ever go 3-0, I might lose my voice from celebrating. It is one of the most challenging trips at all the conferences I've coached in.
Now, and I noticed on the website, I found this interesting. You have Black Lives Matter on the website, and I think that's great because a lot of people over the last 2 years, a lot of schools, companies, whatever, threw the slogan out there, and then it kind of, as the year went on, it kind of gets lost. And we were talking before we started recording that your program is it's not just a name only, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I thought it was great that it's still on there, and that if you would care to explain what you were talking to me about beforehand.
Absolutely. We talking about the difference between performative actions versus something that people really take to heart and making a teachable moment. And for women's basketball, we're adamant about not even participating in things that could be performative. We all take pride into learning more from a diversity and equity and inclusion standpoint. So it's not just a hashtag to us, we live it. Tomorrow is November 2nd. Division I has already passed legislation for civic engagement activities. And so there's no practices or games on November 2nd. So student athletes and coaches can go vote or participate in voting activities or civic engagement activities on that day if they choose to. That legislation has not officially passed yet at the Division II level. I think it will. I honestly do think it will.
Yeah.
The convention is in January. But my team has, we've taken to heart November 2nd from day one since I've been head coach. I'm proud to say my whole team is registered to vote. And even though we're practicing tomorrow, because like I said, legislation has not passed for Division II, we took an hour out of our practice time today, and we're going to take an hour out of our practice time tomorrow. And we're doing a viewing of Selma, the movie Selma. And throughout the movie, I'll narrate certain aspects of the movie to kind of help them understand exactly what's happening. To start off the movie, I had asked the significance of tomorrow, the significance of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And when students did not know, what we were talking about, we literally broke it down. What's Bloody Sunday? Why is this significant? How does this tie into John Lewis and SNCC? And how does SNCC and the SCLC tie into the Black Panthers? And, how is it that in the 60s, we were able to still distract issues at hand that Dr. King and Ralph Abernathy and Bevins Bevels was bringing up to President Johnson with, oh, poverty is an issue and that's my main agenda. History repeats itself where if you have, for instance, you mentioned Black Lives Matter, and an easy distraction is to say, well, all lives matter, or throw out a different type of form of oppression where we create this oppression Olympics instead of exactly what is at hand that people are advocating for. And so as coaches, we are still educators. If we say our students are student athletes and the student and the athlete is 1A and 1B, it is our responsibility to stay informed, to stay in touch, and to continue to inspire young people to be knowledgeable and not allow them to just vote for a legislation they have no idea about.
That's so refreshing to hear. It really is that you're not just relying on basketball. You're not just teaching basketball, but you're teaching and molding young women for better life in the future and more knowledge. Could you give a scouting report? I'm going to put you on the spot to give a scouting report on your team.
Woo!
But you don't have to give away any secrets.
No, there's no secrets. We pride ourselves on being fast, fierce, and focused. You'll hear me throw out those 3 F's quite often. Very athletic, take advantage of mismatches. We have tons of playmakers, some very capable shot makers, and so this year's team is extremely unselfish. Very young, so they're still learning when not to over penetrate or when not to overpass, because then it start getting good to them, But the quickest scouting report, team full of playmakers, every single person capable of making a play. We added some size that could cause some mismatch opportunities in our conference, and a team that is definitely on the bubble. We're a team that could really shake things up in our conference.
Well, I look forward to following that then. If you're going to shake things up, I got to be on that. Do you follow the WNBA?
All the time. All
All
the
right,
time.
then I got to put you on the spot one more time. Who is the greatest of all time?
Cynthia Cooper. Give me a harder question than that. I'm an LA kid. Come on now.
No love for Candace Parker?
I have major love for Candace Parker and a lot of respect for her. But Cynthia Cooper, coming out of Locke High School, was the person that I looked to where I had to look at my dad and say, hey, Dad, I know I used to wear number 22 in your honor, but can I switch to 14? I grew up watching Cynthia Cooper in the WBA, when I could really appreciate the game. And I remember going to watch her play against the Sparks back at the Forum when they played in Inglewood. And she'll light us up and she throwing up the pump it up sign. And I just knew I wanted to be just like her, the heart and the pride out of South Central, where you grow up where I grew up from and you see someone like her, they represent hope. They represent college. And that's the first time you get to see what you could possibly be. And so Cynthia Cooper has always been that for me. I had the pleasure of meeting her in a hair salon, ironically, and we had this conversation, and she's been in my life ever since, and so people like her and Tina Thompson, she went to Morningside, and of course Lisa Leslie, where we come from, you do look to them like we're next, we're next. Candace Parker, when she played for the Sparks, I coached at Southwest Community College, and our paths crossed quite often. One of my players for my Southwest team ended up being Candace's babysitter.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, she is still in touch with Candace. As a matter of fact, Candace has taken her overseas with her. Candace has flown her out to Chicago and has just taken her under her wing and treated her like family. So I am pro Candace Parker. No one can tell me anything negative about her. What she has done with my former player is so much bigger than basketball. And the same type of love I have for Cynthia Cooper, that's what this generation has for a Candace Parker. She is giving them the blueprint. She is giving them a role model, and it's so much bigger than basketball.
Well, I brought up Candace because I'm in Chicago, and we just won the title. I don't know if you know that, if you saw that.
I was rooting for her. I'm not gonna even lie. I was rooting for her. We miss her in LA. Her impact was felt on and off of the court, and I'm glad she was able to do what only a few are able to do. I got chills watching what she did in Chicago. It felt like LeBron going back to Cleveland. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and she deserved it.
No, it was great. It's great. It's been great to. Obviously, I followed her from her high school days. I hated to see her go to LA, but I still cheered for her. And then when she came back and to win the title, that's it's weird because 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I never would have said anything like this because women's basketball was nowhere near as popular, and I wasn't in tune to it. But the more I watch it, the more I love it. And starting with college ball, I love, and seeing her win the title really was probably one of the greatest sports moments of my life. It ranks right up there with the Bears in '85 to me.
No, I understand it. I definitely understand it. I can relate because I'm not from Chicago, but seeing how her growth and her journey in LA and how things ended, as an LA person, I'm not really pleased with how it ended. If you follow me on social media, you saw where I said something to the extent like, am I the only person side eyeing Coach Fisher right now? But um, everyone has a story. And I think Candace quotes to young people when she says something to the extent of, it's not always for us to yell. Everyone doesn't have to hear your side. Just go out there and the work speaks for itself. Chicago should be proud. Job well done. Job well done.
Well, I would say the same about you, though. I mean, for what Candace has done, you're doing that now with young women, and I think it's fantastic. I so appreciate your time. I really, I would love to check back with you during the season to get an update on how the team is going, um, if you're willing to do that. And
Absolutely.
I wish you so much luck during the season. I am going to be following the team now. Now I got a team to root for out in the LA area or the California area. And I appreciate your time. I really do. And again, I thank you for what you're doing to the with the youth of America.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. And hopefully we get you out here to a game. We got to get you to San Francisco.
We got to get my boss at Global Women's Sports Radio to send me out there. I'm in. I would love to come out there.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much for your time. You have a good one.
You have a good night and good luck to your team.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.